Shavua Tov Mevrach. Mishnah Yomi continues in the second chapter of Bava Batra, Mishnayot Gimel Dalet 3-4 today. Yesterday we started this parak, this chapter, talking about restraining from doing things on your own property that might affect your neighbor's property. Now in Mishnah Gimel, Lo Yiftoch Adam Chanut Shalnach Tomin Shal Tzabayim. A person can't open a store for baking or for dyeing garments Tachat Otzar Shel Havero, underneath the storage facility of his fellow, V'lo Refet Bakar, and not a barn for cattle. The idea being the heat from the baking and the dyeing process might damage the items stored upstairs, and of course the smell from the animals in the barn could do the same. Be'emet, but in truth, Biyayin Hitziru, they allowed it by wine storage upstairs, they allowed the heat sources downstairs, Aval Lo Refet Bakar, but not a stable for animals. The Bartner explains that the heat wasn't going to affect the aging of the wine. Back then, they did store the wine in thick clay containers. Those might have had some degree of heat resistance. Now, the Mishnah adds, Chanut shebechatzer. One resident in the chatzar, in the courtyard, wants to open up a store, a makolet, and have people come in and buy things. Yachal limchat biyado. The other residents can prevent him, v'lomar lo, and tell him, Eini yachal lishan. Listen, I can't sleep. Mikol nichnasim, from the people coming in. Mikol yotzim, the people coming out. The customers are coming in, doing business, all day. I can't get a nap. Avol ose kalim, but somebody who's manufacturing items, yotzei umocher betoch hashuk. He can make them in the courtyard as long as he's going out into the shuk, into the public market, and selling his items there. So he can build things in the chatzar and then take them out and sell them outside. Ve'eno yachol limchot biyado, and the other residents of the chatzar can't prevent him from building utensils. V'lomar lo, by telling him, Eini yachol lishon mikol hapotish, I can't sleep because you're hammering on things. Lo mikol rachayim, or I can't sleep because you're grinding things in the mill. V'lo mikol etinokot, or I can't sleep because of the children. Now, who said anything about children? In the Gemara, they explained we're dealing with certain types of school. Now, if somebody wants to open up a yeshiva, a beis medrash, and teach children, there's no way to object. That's a mitzvah, a very important mitzvah. We're dealing with somebody who wants to open up some sort of group for children that's not Torah-centered, then there'd be a right to object to the noise of the children. And on that theme in the Gemara in Bava Batra, Daf 21, Chaf Aleph, they talk about Rabbi Yeshua ben Gamla, Zachor Latov, who established the first school system, which was originally for orphans, because there's a mitzvah for parents, grandparents, to teach their children Torah, but if someone's an orphan, there's no one to teach them. So originally the school was just for them. Rabbi Yeshua ben Gamla set it up so no one would forget Torah, and the Gemara there, Daf 21, discusses the importance of teaching young children, making sure they get everything right, and they bring really an amazing story where Yoav, who was the general working for David the Melech, he went to fight and really do damage to Amalek, and he killed every Zachar, every male in Amalek, because his Rebbe had told him Zachar, but the word is really Zecher. Zecher is not just the man, it's literally everything, every remnant of Amalek, but he only killed the Zachar. And David HaMelech got very upset and went after his Rebbe, the Rebbe of Yoav, his general, because he was so upset about this mistake. And it's a reminder that we should always be very supportive and very patient with our children and our students, and really take the time to make sure they're understanding and that they're proud of what they're accomplishing, and really be extremely supportive of that. It's really critical to our entire mission as the Jewish people. So I highly recommend looking at the Gemara 21, 22 in the Gemara. Very exciting Gemara there. But on to Mishnah Daled. Misha haya kotlo samuch lakotol havero. Someone had his wall samuch adjacent to the wall of his neighbor. So in this case, lo yismuch lo kotel acher, he can't now build another wall next to his neighbor's wall, ela imken hirchik mimenu arba amot, unless he gives a 4 amma gap between the neighbor's wall and his new wall. What's going on is the neighbor's wall is at a right angle perpendicular to his existing wall, and he wants to add a wall attached to his neighbor's wall to sort of close off that space. The idea is he can't really do that because you need people walking there to sort of flatten down and solidify the dirt next to the neighbor's wall to make it structurally sound. And in the Gemara, they explain we're dealing with a kotel gina, like a wall they just put up around a garden that's, something that's recent. But if it's, something built in the city 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and the ground is already compacted, then it would not be a problem to add a wall to the neighbor's existing wall. The Mishnah adds hachalonot, and the windows. Now we're dealing with somebody's building a wall next to his neighbor's window. Bein milmala, whether his wall is going to be higher than the neighbor's window, bein milmatan, or lower than the neighbor's window, ben kenegdan, or in front of the neighbor's window, arba amot. So the top of the wall needs to be arba amot, higher, lower, or away from the window of the neighbor. The idea being we don't want people to walk on top of the wall or to be peering over the wall, using the wall as a way to look into the window of the neighbor. And this is not merely an ancient building code that's been added to the Mishnah. This is an idea of tzniut, of modesty, that goes back to ancient times in the Midbar, in the 40 years in the desert. Recall when Balak hired Bilam to curse the Jews, and he realized the Jews were very tznius. The openings of the tents were not facing one another, so people could not peer into each other's tents. And he said, Matuv Ochalecha Yaakov, it's beautiful, your tents, Mishkanetecha Yisrael. So we were praised by the evil prophets for our modesty. So the modesty of the Jewish people is an important value for 4,000 years. And this is a continuation of that theme. It's something called hezek, that there's damage caused when people can look into the window, can, look into upper floor windows where there should be privacy. It's something that needs to be avoided. Tizkul mitzvot and Shavua Tov.